It's not that big a deal. It matters. There are all kinds of people looking and reading your content. So let's give a round of applause to Troy.
Thank you. So I think we're all really jazzed right now about how many exciting things we can make, right? So let's say that you make this website and everybody loves it. Like you do these sort of hallway UATs and you just get big smiles and like, oh, this is really wonderful. And you put it out in production. And you know, we all have tracking software of some sort that's very commercially available. And you can see that there are people that they use your website and it is like climbing Mount Doom. It is slow and hard, and you can see there's nothing weird about their technology stack. There's just, it's really hard for them to use your website. And my first job, I inherited 2 people, and the reason it was so hard for them to use this website was that they were blind. And in America, this is nice because we have a civilization. We have both the moral and legal obligation to make these things available to people. You can't just tell them, no, you can't use my website. But I had just graduated from a boot camp, and I wasn't really solid in my technology skills in making websites for people that use websites exactly like I did. So making a website for somebody who used it in a different way was a really big challenge, and I was partially hired sort of as the person in the room that did not put their finger by their nose when this project came in. So there wasn't really anybody to be my guide and assistant in how to do this. So I did what one does when we have unanswerable questions, and I Googled it, and I ended up finding these legal obligations, because America, civilization, and it was, this is called the WCAG, and it's a lot of guidelines, largely about what your website should not do. So thank you. I appreciate that expression, because that was sort of mine, where I'm like, okay, I understand that my website has to have robustness, and it needs to have sort of these alternate ways of consumption, but I don't know how I would do that. I would really love something that I could cut and paste, but it turns out that this is not easily available. Actually, these resources are very disorderly. So I sort of fell back on what was well, I have a graduate degree, so what was very understandable to me, which is what a student needs to do, right? Like the tasks, because my God, I had gone through a lot of tasks being a student for many years. And they all have like schedules, right? Like they have things that they need to do on this website. And these students, although they were blind, still had to do all the same stuff, right? They were going to do it in a slightly different workflow, but the end point was the same. So this was very understandable, very tactile for me. I would say, all right, on Wednesday she has to turn in an assignment. She's going to have to do it through this interface. And I sort of individually in my own way, like Nell living in the forest, invented what is an entire discipline which is called UX. So that's user experience. And essentially I had to like foster the empathy for somebody needs to do a thing. This is how they're going to do it. This is the interface they're going to do it through. And if you all are not really sure exactly how this feels, right? Because it took me a little bit of a while to learn how to use a website differently. This is the experience that you've probably most likely had recently, which is going to a restaurant website, which is the category of websites which are recognized as just the worst on the internet. They're just, everything about them is terrible. All you want to know is, will it be open this day? Can I get fish? And it's this whole, you have to listen to credentialless Italian music while it pans lovingly through Flash. And the reason is that they are small companies and they have spent a lot of money making this asset. Okay, like these people, they make food. They are not interested in the internet. And part of the vehicle to provide you the right food is that they have paid somebody with good graphical skills to print a piece of paper. This is the menu. You are intended to consume this menu at the restaurant while you're sitting there holding it in your hands, right? So this whole workflow for them, and they've put a lot of money into this, they're a small business, is that you're supposed to consume it this way. But now, saucy you want to consume it a different way than they intended. Because what you want to do is just highlight activated watermelon and send it to your coworker through Slack so that she'll order the right thing when you all get lunch together. But half the time this does not work, right? So this is an experience that we've all had that is very similar to someone who's trying to use the internet differently than we do. This would be an inaccessible asset. And what that means very specifically, if you kind of want to get a little, have you ever looked at your hands about it, is these are pixels that are next to each other that have different degrees of luminosity. And our working retinas and our little people brains think of these as words. But these are not words, these are pixels next to each other, and because the words aren't on the browser, our computer doesn't know that they're there. And any other interface, such as a screen reader or something used by a person that needs assistive technology, these are not words and they cannot use them, right? And so I had two blind users. I kind of wanted to just go through the encyclopedia of things to do for blind people. But it turned out that they were extremely dissimilar, perhaps not apples and oranges, but two very different, maybe apples and pears. And my first user was Sally, and Sally just used whatever came out of the box. Technology was not Sally's hobby, and she did not want to mess around with it. She was getting a degree in social work, and like her whole business model was that she did counseling through the phone. Like the internet was not of her interest. So she had bought a Mac, and she used the screen reader, which was available on the Mac in whatever version of the operating system that Mac had at the time that she bought it. And that's called VoiceOver. And you all, if you've used a Mac and you've accidentally pushed Command and F5 at the same time with maybe your wrist and it's just started shouting at you, you've used a screen reader too. And Sally had this just stoic worldview and did so many things just by brute force. And later on in our relationship, I actually had the opportunity to talk to her on the phone and listen to her as she used it. And there were things that I put in there that were supposed to make things easier. And Sally just started at the upper left-hand corner, and she worked her way to the lower right-hand corner. And that is how she used the website. And there were things in there that I tried to do. But you know what? That wasn't how she used a website. Right? Like I could put things in there, I'm like, oh, she'll figure it out. But like this wasn't her hobby. She didn't want to go look around on the website about what I'd put out on production that week. Like she just wanted to consume educational content, to be a responsible social worker to help people that were going blind, because that was her specialty. And she approached it in this very, stoic and muscular way. So she would just hike from the upper left-hand corner to the lower right. So this is kind of her journey. When you use the keyboard, and Sally's situation was she was a keyboard user because she was blind, and in order to use a pointing device, you have to have a certain degree of visual acuity to point at things. Most of her operational problems were from the keyboard, because all she did was she just did things in order, right? So it was not, the screen reader read it out loud to her, but that was almost secondary to the issues she had just navigating around the website. And the way you use the keyboard, which a lot of people do, I actually do now that I am using my husband's computer, and he has screwed it up terribly, which is why I have it now. And the pointing device doesn't work. I use the keyboard all the time. People like on Amtrak do as well because it's too wiggly. That box just shows the first interactable element. That's a button. And then when you hit Tab, or if somebody has set it up appropriately, but a lot of websites don't, you hit the space bar, because the space bar is large and you can always find it. You just hit Tab, and then it navigates to the next interactable element. So the definition of that is anything that will do something when you hit Enter. So links, buttons, tabs. This was the website as it was when she first came upon it, and this is where she would land. Upper left-hand corner, she got very familiar with that. And it said what class she was in. It was a button. It would take her back to kind of the main page. And then she would hit the Tab button, and she would reach this navigational element, and it would take her to the wall. That would be where people chatted and things. And then she'd hit the Tab button, and she'd go to the coursework page. Option to go to the coursework page, which she probably just came from, so no, she doesn't actually want to go there. Next tab is the live sessions page, which was like the coursework page, but it was filtered slightly differently. But that was sort of an option she could go to. And then like 7 times, and by the way, I'm writing this like, you know, Lord of the Rings, where it's like a lot of pages to get you an idea of how long this takes. She's now pressed the Tab key like 7 times. And she gets to this block of people that are sorted alphabetically, not whether or not she knows them. And this is the person's name, which is a link to their profile. Next to it is a link to add them as a friend or to email them. And every single person in this block she has to go through, right? So 30-something times she has to press the tab key. She's now finally at the lower left-hand corner. But because the upper part looks sort of lonely, I guess, there's a bunch of stuff there too. So now she hits the bottom left-hand corner. She's now working her way over to the right. And she finally gets to this play button. And I picked this video because this video is 2.5 minutes long. Some of them were 30 seconds long. And it would take her longer to get there than to actually watch the video. And it's, you know, it's just a slog, right? What I want to do is just remove stuff. But this isn't really a thing that I can just decide to do and comment on a JIRA ticket on a Tuesday. Removed left-hand rail, it was useless. Made website accessible. So you have to get people on your side for this, right? And the right people were the people who actually were professionals in the field that I felt that I had discovered, which is UX. And I needed to get them to agree that the website, when it was redesigned or whatever options we had, we could cut a lot of this stuff away. Because the whole reason I put you through this slug is this is in service of saying it's not better to put more stuff on something else, right? Like this sandwich is taller than a baby. This sandwich is not going to have any appreciable benefit by putting a little peppercini right on the top of it. You know, like that's not, she doesn't need more stuff, she needs less stuff. Here. And you know, this is always used as minimalist design, examples, hooray. We don't all get to be Google search, right? Like that is very specific business. It takes stuff that you don't know the answer to, and then it gives you text back. And like that's simple, but that's one very specific business. This is much more kind of an example of something that we all probably work on or we could hope to achieve. This is the New York Public Library. Oh boy, I'm feeling self-conscious. I was just talking to somebody that works there. This is a nice website. And I'm not saying that just because you're right in front of me. I wanted to point this one out in particular, though, because it's laid out nicely, right? You've got right up there in the beginning, please tell us who you are. Right next to it is the opportunity to probably find the one next to you, so you can get a book to read or something. And if you go there with a keyboard, this is the first thing you hit. You may notice that just popped up. You'll only get to it if you use a keyboard. And it is a hidden internal link that when you activate it, will take you to the main content of the page. And that's kind of where, you know, maybe I've lost some of you, which is like, Walker, you suck at putting your slides together. Why did you do this whole thing about, oh, UX problems have UX solutions, and like, talk to your designer, don't make decisions on a Tuesday, have write-only Tuesday. I don't want to talk to my designer. He's got an asymmetric haircut and keeps making catchphrases from Steven Universe. Please, could I not do that? But the reason that we went through this whole journey together was because you have to make a decision about what main is, right? Like this is, you'll notice this is the common convention. It's called skip to main. This is an informational choice. This is not just the first thing after the navigational bar, because you decide what is the first thing after the navigational bar. And what I find very interesting specifically about the New York Public Library is when you hit skip to main, it actually takes you past the whole I would like to read a novel, I would like to be entertained part, because the New York Public Library has made a decision that they are not in the entertainment business. We don't, I actually have I give them money. And I give them money not just because I can read books, because I can read books for smaller amounts of money if I do it through Amazon, but this is like a premier cultural institution that's near my house. And that is how they are branding themselves. That is what you get to when you go to the main part of the library page. And this is a decision made by founders and business people and informational architects. This is, once again, not a thing you just write on a Tuesday on a JIRA ticket, decided our business is a local cultural institution. This is a page, I literally, I don't know if this is the same page, when I won't stop using this screenshot that I took. This is an example of why Tuesday afternoon is not a good time to decide what your whole business is about. Because this web page is so disordered, and I've done this, for money, like to decide things. I don't know where you would go. And if you look up at the URL here, like you name your files kind of like by what they do, this is pre-welcome. Like this is so disorganized, it doesn't have a point. So we go from this, I'm once again not burying it in JIRA tickets, but what I did was I insisted on having a seat at the table with the redesign. And this was really helpful. The UX people wanted to just make a good website that served everybody. But I helped give them leverage about how to do that, and the whole we're going to be sued thing is a really big stick to have leverage for. So this solution is so much clearer, and it helps everybody, and it's way less distracting. And it also, it just helps all the people. So that was about keyboards. So now I've got the Apple to Sally's pair, who is Ted. And Ted had just a completely different, first of all, different stack. He used Windows, he used JAWS. And he had a different philosophy, which was that he fetched things from the website and he brought it to him. He did not hike anywhere. And he essentially had what is like jQuery. And he would search for elements on the page and it would retrieve it to him. And this is an example of the rakes that are left in the lawn for Ted, which is that thing up there, which is, everybody here probably knows enough HTML to know that's an anchor tab. It has class button, and it has href of nothing. That looks wrong, and that is wrong. Below it is an actual button, which will just refresh the page, right? So this is the difference between a link and a button. These are just generally accepted upon things. HTML's only got a certain number of nouns. Please use them correctly. I am going to move on a little bit because, oh my God, I can talk about this for a long time. Some of them were just mistakes, right? Things changed over time. Things that were used in a certain way, it didn't take you anywhere because it was not worth a certain page, right? But words have meanings. Please use the right words. Everybody needs that. And this is the trap that we can fall in, which is with frameworks, it just makes a lot of HTML. When it makes a lot of HTML, it just gives them divs. Those is the equivalent in HTML of thing. These are just things everywhere. And this is actually a page which will not accept Sally and Ted's money because they cannot navigate off of this page using the technology they have. This is also a company that's no longer a company. So the question is, why don't we do this, right? This is obviously the right thing. We should make websites that are good for everybody. But why did my company, which made some really good decisions, whatever, I think I'm spectacular, and I saved them all. But why did they take the person who was the least experienced and the cheapest and put them on this project, right? That is just outright putting less money where you don't think you're getting a lot of value. And part of it is because we think of our users as being these very discrete populations, right? There's something intrinsic in their identity that this person is a mother, this person lives in Alaska, this person is a mother who took a bus from Alaska to go to this march. But I really want to challenge you, don't think about your users that way because then you're like, well, this tiny, tiny tub only has a few people in it, right? But your users, the borders are very permeable. These populations kind of go from one place to another. To their Amazon Echo, Sally and Ted are not disabled. There is no difference with them when they use their Amazon Echo. But my coworker, who's 24 and perfectly well-abled and has really good Wi-Fi, got sunscreen in her eye one afternoon and had to increase the size of everything on the website because she couldn't see it anymore, right? So we're all going in and out of these groups. So this is the first kind of right-hand turn that this talk is going to take, because it's not just a story about me. This is a story about you. And this is a story about how we are all only temporarily able-bodied. These websites that we make now, and boy, I hope they power a lot of races and improvements in our country. We are going to use these for a long time. So we're setting them up to be things that we are going to use when we're 99 and nothing's working quite the same way it used to anymore. And then the other right-hand turn I want to make is it's not just a story about let's all really contemplate our mortality. It's about going in on Monday and using your tools the way that they're meant to be. HTML has words, they mean things. CSS has styling, and it makes things look a certain way, and it shouldn't influence its identity at all. And JavaScript is just, you know, sometimes it's funsies, sometimes it's good manners, but it's not the core identity of what your product is. And on Monday, really kind of see where you are with that. And if you need help, boy, there's a lot of good-hearted people, and I've met a lot of them today, that I think would help you out. Thank you.
Great job, Sterling. That was great.